Welcome to Dream Stories Sleep, where ancient legends whisper with the night wind, soothing your mind. Here, there's only tranquility for peaceful slumber. Just let the story guide you, and all worries fade away. If you've found peace tonight, please like, subscribe, or share your thoughts. Your notes help maintain this space. In a busy world, serenity is a rare gift, and your presence here is wonderful. Thank you for choosing to rest and listen. Now, gently close your eyes and let the story dissolve into sleep. Close your eyes and listen. Have you ever wondered what your beauty would be judged by had you been born in the Middle Ages? As a noble, a peasant, or a monk? Would those standards surprise you, even shock you? And more importantly, would you be willing to risk your health, even your life, just to achieve a beauty that modern times might consider peculiar? On this long night, as candlelight flickers, casting mystical shadows on ancient stone walls, and the wind whispers like a lullaby from eons past, we will unlock the gates of time together. You will step into a mysterious and captivating medieval world where notions of beauty differed astonishingly from what we know today. Breathe deeply, inhaling the scent of damp earth, smoldering wood from the hearth, and the distinctive aroma of sturdy stone structures. An invitation to slow down gently and let all your worries dissipate. The theme of this journey will transport us to the beauty standards of medieval Europe, approximately from the 10th to the 15th centuries. This is not just a story about outward appearance. It's a journey to discover the symbols of status, purity, and even the spiritual meanings hidden within each feature. Was porcelain skin truly a symbol of nobility, or merely a sign of illness? Was golden hair a gift of nature, or the result of hazardous beauty treatments? And why was a radiant, confident smile considered impolite, even vulgar? Through each whispered word of dream story sleep, we will guide you through these secrets. Are you ready to uncover the strange, sometimes surprising, but always deeply historical truths? We will unveil the mysteries of how medieval people managed body odor in scarce conditions, the reasons behind high, browless foreheads, and the profound meaning of beauty marks. Each detail will unfold gradually, layer by layer, like ancient stone doors within a castle. Take one more deep breath. Feel the stillness enveloping you. The medieval dream awaits. Let my voice guide you, and the stories from 1,000 years ago will slowly lead you into peaceful slumber. Welcome to Dream Stories Sleep. Take a sip of tea. Close your eyes. You are now immersed in the cozy bedchamber of a medieval noblewoman. The air in the room is softer than outside, where the wind still sings its cold song beyond the window pane. The light from the pale yellow beeswax candles flickers, casting whimsical shapes on the time-worn oak table. The light doesn't waver or flicker erratically, but seems to breathe, rhythmic with every gentle gust. You can feel the warm scent of beeswax, the clean smell of linen, and the faint fragrance of dried lavender bunches hanging on the wall. It's a soft, natural aroma, quite unlike the damp, earthy smell in the cold stone corridors. The first thing you will notice when you look at the lady is her skin. It is exceedingly pale, almost translucent, with faint blue veins subtly visible beneath its delicate surface. It doesn't look like skin that is sickly or sleep-deprived. On the contrary, it is the pinnacle of beauty. This skin isn't just a physical characteristic, it's a powerful statement. It whispers one thing to the entire world. I am too rich to ever see the sun, thank you very much. Think about the stark contrast to our modern beauty standards. Today, a healthy, tanned complexion often conjures images of beach vacations, vigorous yoga sessions, or refreshing green smoothies. It symbolizes vitality, an active lifestyle, a close connection to nature. But in the Middle Ages, this concept was completely reversed. Tanned skin, that meant you worked outdoors under the harsh glare of the sun. That meant you were poor. That meant, oh, a dreadful thought, you engaged in manual labor. And nothing screamed not beautiful in the 14th century like knowing how to milk a cow or having calloused hands from tilling muddy fields. Therefore, the paler you were, the higher your perceived social status. And when we say pale, we don't mean a soft, creamy ivory glow with a healthy hint of pink. We're talking about translucent, pure porcelain skin, so light that you could actually see the veins showing beneath it. Skin so luminous it looked as if you might have been recently startled by a ghost, or perhaps you were a ghost, freshly emerged from the netherworld. It possessed a delicate, fragile quality, as if a gentle breeze might cause you to stumble. This beauty was not aimed at health, but an ethereal, otherworldly quality, akin to the angels depicted in church paintings. Of course, nature doesn't always cooperate, especially if you were born with a truly functional circulatory system that allowed blood to flow healthily beneath your skin. So people found ways to assist nature. Noble women, and occasionally even men in affluent courts, would apply white lead powder to their faces. This powder provided that signature, stark pallor, what we might call a corpse-chic glow. And, as an added bonus, it slowly poisoned them. But beauty in every era has always had its price. Some would use thin linen cloths soaked in vinegar to bleach their skin. Vinegar, being acidic, helped remove dead skin cells and lighten the complexion, though the process could cause irritation and dryness. Others applied a strange yet supposedly refined mixture, crushed pearls mixed with egg whites. This concoction not only lightened the face, but also had the curious side effect of making one's cheeks feel tight and dry, like a stale omelette left out too long. You can imagine the discomfort, every time one smiled or spoke, the face feeling almost frozen. To simulate even greater delicacy and fragility, veins were sometimes painted on the arms and chest using blue pigment. This created the illusion of skin so thin it was transparent, giving the impression that your skin might split open at any moment. It was like a silent affirmation of nobility, a declaration of never having to perform any manual labor, being delicate enough to do nothing but sit still. Even the literature of the time began to participate in this pursuit of pale beauty. Romantic poems often described women as being as white as milk, as white as snow. On one occasion, a poet even described his beloved as the moon in winter, a beautiful way of implying she looked as though she might faint at any moment. It's fascinating how beauty could be defined by fragility and a lack of vitality. This pale aesthetic wasn't just about pure beauty, it was shorthand. It symbolized class, purity, and a complete economic disengagement from agriculture. If you could afford to be fragile, you were winning the social game. Beauty in the Middle Ages often required intense commitment. And by commitment, we mean a slow, decorative form of chemical warfare on oneself. Because for those noble women and even men striving to achieve that prestigious pale complexion, nature simply wasn't enough. So they reached for makeup, specifically lead-based white face powder. Yes, lead, the very substance we now use to seal off old buildings or carefully remove from old homes for safety. But back then, it was considered cutting-edge beauty technology. The result of applying this lead powder was a smooth, starkly pale, matte finish. It was the medieval equivalent of our high-coverage foundation, creating a flawless appearance for the skin. But in the long run, it made the actual skin feel anything but flawless. White lead powder was produced by combining vinegar with metallic lead and then allowing it to corrode and form a white crust that could be ground into a fine powder. Imagine that production process, fraught with risks and far from hygienic by modern standards. If you applied this powder daily, voila, you looked like a luminous, delicate aristocrat with a secret death wish. And if your skin began to flake, blister, or fall off in small, diplomatic chunks, even better. It meant the makeup was working, being effective. It's astounding how a sign of skin damage could be considered a success. This wasn't a single-product routine either. Many added mercury-based rouge for color on their cheeks, or chalk dust for more staying power in their makeup. Egg whites were brushed over the face for a smooth, glazed porcelain-like look. Basically, if it came from a peasant's barn or an alchemist's mysterious shelf, someone had probably experimented by rubbing it on their face in the name of elegance and beauty. The downside of this, besides the obvious slow poisoning, was that lead-based products caused everything from chronic fatigue and skin ulcers to hair loss and premature death. These horrific side effects are certainly not listed on most of our modern skincare labels. But the fashion endured, because if the choice was between dying slowly and gracefully as a respected noble, or being mistaken for a healthy but lower-class peasant, the aristocracy often chose the scenic, often fatal route to the grave. Death for beauty was considered an acceptable sacrifice. Men were not always immune to these trends either. Some male courtiers also used powders or skin treatments, especially in the later medieval and early Renaissance courts. In these environments, personal image and appearance mattered almost as much as lineage, or at least as much as smelling less terrible than your rival. They too sought to exude a refined, unblemished look to match their status. So there you have it. Pale skin wasn't just an aesthetic preference. It was a social declaration, a clear line distinguishing class. It was a delicate curtain hiding the harsh realities of life and the intense obsession with status. That skin, as beautiful as it was, held secrets of sacrifice, of toxic substances, and of a burning desire to belong to a higher echelon. As night falls and the candlelight breathes steadily once more, you can feel the story of that skin still lingering in the air, haunting and mesmerizing.
Imagine the faint light of early morning filtering through a small arched window. You are standing in a dressing chamber, perhaps belonging to a countess. The air is still cool, carrying the familiar damp, earthy scent of the stone walls. You see a polished metal mirror reflecting a face. The first thing that strikes you, something astonishingly different from any face you'd see in modern times, is her forehead. That forehead is high, smooth, with no wisps of baby hair or hint of a wrinkle to interrupt its perfection. And even more surprisingly, there are absolutely no eyebrows. The face appears delicate, yet it carries a mysterious, almost ethereal quality. This is no accident. It is the zenith of a peculiar and immensely popular beauty trend in the Middle Ages. During this period, a high, smooth, and uninterrupted forehead was not merely considered fashionable. It was revered as a symbol of elegance, intelligence, and even divine beauty. The forehead was like an architectural marvel on the medieval face, a pure, blank canvas. The ideal forehead seemed to declare, "I spend my days reading psalms and gazing contemplatively out of castle windows, not wielding a shovel or toiling in the sun." It implied a life of intellect, an enlightened soul, and a status that required no manual exertion. To achieve this noble look, women resorted to extreme and, frankly, quite painful and itchy measures. Eyebrows were plucked entirely, to the point of near non-existence. This didn't stop at the eyebrows. Sometimes even the hair on the scalp itself was removed, inch by inch, plucked further back to push the hairline even higher. This wasn't a simple trim. This was a full-scale forehead expansion project. Imagine the sensation. Not just a few stray hairs, but the entire brow line, strand by strand, sometimes even the baby hairs along the hairline. Medieval beauty and grooming guides, those precious texts passed among the nobility, offered specific advice. They recommended using tweezers, hot cloths to soften the skin before plucking, and even strange depilatory creams. These creams were made from things we would find rather unsettling today, like cat dung, quicklime, or leeches steeped in vinegar. All for a single purpose: to display a forehead so broad you could use it as a sundial, a perfectly unblemished surface. The results were truly striking by the standards of the time. Portraits from this period show women with serene expressions, calm eyes, and foreheads so expansive you could stage a jousting tournament upon them, a metaphor for their vastness and importance. When combined with the pale skin we discussed in the previous chapter and the soft facial contours, this high forehead beauty became shorthand for refined aristocratic elegance. And it wasn't just the face itself that served this trend. Fashion strongly supported this look as well. Tight-fitting head wraps, wimples that covered the chin and neck, and the famous hennins, those soaring conical hats we'll explore more deeply in a later chapter, All were designed to either push the hairline high up or at least conceal where your eyebrows used to be. You can picture a woman in a beige wimple, her delicate face crowned by that towering forehead, as if no hair or eyebrow dared to intrude. This wasn't an isolated trend confined to a single secluded castle. From England to France and across Italy, noble women enthusiastically embraced this high forehead style. Artists and poets of the era also reinforced the trend by praising women whose faces seemed to begin near the top of their heads, as if their foreheads were an extension of a crown. Of course, not everyone had the luxury of time or the strange implements to achieve eyebrowless perfection. So, in a moment of medieval ingenuity, some women cheated. They faked a high forehead by painting a new, slightly higher hairline onto their brow, then covering the rest of their hair and eyebrows with a headband or veil. Yes, the Middle Ages had their own version of contouring. It just involved a lot more fabric than powder. This shows the adaptability and resourcefulness of people in the face of rigid beauty standards. In medieval Europe, eyebrows weren't just underappreciated, they were actively eradicated. Modern beauty trends might celebrate bold brows, natural arches, and countless online tutorials. But in the 14th and 15th centuries, eyebrows were seen as unnecessary clutter on the face, detracting from the forehead's pure expanse. Eyebrows were essentially viewed as stubborn weeds growing in the garden of the face, needing to be cleared away for beauty to fully blossom. Some even went further and shaved the eyebrow area completely, ensuring not a single hair dared to interrupt their plaster-like aristocratic beauty. It was the kind of commitment that might make modern beauty influencers blink twice, largely because there were no eyebrow pencils to draw them back on when a change of heart occurred. To remove their brows, medieval women employed tweezers, beeswax for depilation, pumice stones for abrasion, or, for the particularly brave, mixtures containing quicklime, vinegar, or even arsenic. Yes, arsenic. Because nothing says intense dedication to your appearance like risking a slight facial meltdown. This was not merely a fleeting fad. Art from the period, from exquisite illuminated manuscripts to oil portraits, confirms this trend. Noble women are consistently depicted with serene expressions, calm eyes, and foreheads so expansive you could stage a jousting tournament upon them, a metaphor for their vastness and importance. The result is a beauty that is both peaceful and slightly alien, depending on how the light catches it. Interestingly, the eyebrowless trend was not entirely uniform across Europe. In some regions, thin or lightly arched brows still persisted, particularly where influences from the Middle East and the Byzantine Empire filtered through trade routes and warfare. However, generally, the message was clear. If people can see your eyebrows, you're doing it wrong. This didn't apply solely to women. Men, especially those close to court life, occasionally trimmed or groomed their brows as part of a larger, refined aesthetic, although complete removal was rare for men, unless they lost them in a particularly intense theological debate. All of this tells us that medieval beauty ideals were not about looking natural. They were about looking meticulously crafted, symbolic, and slightly angelic. After all, angels in art rarely have eyebrows. Coincidence? Perhaps, but it fit their ideals perfectly. The high, unadorned forehead became a symbol of purity, spirituality, and a separation from worldly concerns.
As night falls and the wind sings its ancient song once more, you can feel the story of that forehead, of the sacrifices made for beauty, and of an era where beauty was defined in profoundly different ways. Let this story guide you into a deep sleep, where the mysteries of the past will slowly unfold. Take a deep breath. Feel the scent of dried herbs in the air, mingling with the faint smell of soot from a long-extinguished hearth. You are in the chamber of a young woman, perhaps a novice nun or a maiden awaiting marriage. Her hair cascades down her shoulders, a shimmering golden stream. The soft, early morning light filters through a small window, catching each strand, making them sparkle as if woven from pure gold. In the Middle Ages, golden hair was more than just a color. It was the gold standard of beauty, a symbol of purity, virtue, youth, and even sanctity. Think of depictions of the Virgin Mary. She was often painted with radiant golden hair, symbolizing her holiness and innocence. This set an idealized example that women aspired to emulate. Long, soft, lustrous hair, and especially a radiant golden hue, was considered the most prominent feature of a beautiful woman. It was like a natural crown, a sign of divine favor. Golden hair was often associated with fairy tales of princesses and queens, who always possessed extraordinary beauty and noble character. But nature didn't always bestow golden tresses upon everyone. Most women in medieval Europe had brown or black hair. So how did they achieve this gold standard of beauty? Women resorted to creative and sometimes rather peculiar methods to lighten their hair color. They used homemade concoctions from ingredients readily available in nature or in their kitchens. One of the most popular methods involved saffron. Saffron wasn't just an expensive spice, it was also used as a natural dye. People would grind saffron into a powder, mix it with water or vinegar, and then apply it to their hair. Afterwards, they would expose their hair to direct sunlight, believing that the sun's rays would activate the saffron's golden color and lighten the hair. However, this process required significant time and patience. An afternoon of sun exposure could last for hours under the intense sun, with a wide-brimmed hat to protect their precious skin from tanning. As we learned in Chapter 2, pale skin was paramount. Another method utilized chamomile flowers. Chamomile blossoms were boiled in water to create a concentrated solution, which was then used to wash or rinse the hair. While it didn't produce a vibrant golden color like saffron, chamomile could naturally lighten the hair and add a subtle sheen. You can imagine the gentle, clean scent of chamomile diffusing through the air as the hair was being washed. Another method utilized ash from burnt wood, often mixed with honey or olive oil to form a paste. This mixture was applied to the hair and left for a certain period. Although it sounds strange, ash contains minerals that could interact with hair pigments, and honey has natural lightening properties. However, using ash could also make the hair dry and brittle. And then there was a method that would frankly shock us today: the use of urine. Yes, urine, especially that of young children, believed to be less toxic. It was thought that the ammonia in urine could help lighten the hair. This was certainly one of the less fragrant methods, but it demonstrates the desperation and intense desire of women at the time to achieve the ideal golden hair. Imagine that smell mingling with the scent of herbs in the enclosed space of a bedchamber. A small sacrifice for beauty. Each of these methods required patience and involved certain risks. Sun exposure could cause scalp sunburn if not carefully covered, or lead to dry and brittle hair. The use of uncontrolled homemade mixtures could also irritate the scalp or damage the hair. But for a noble woman, golden tresses were an indispensable part of perfect beauty, a clear sign of wealth and status. However, these glorious golden locks also came with strict rules, especially for married women. While long, flowing hair was reserved for unmarried women, symbolizing purity, innocence, and natural beauty, once a woman was married, her hair had to be concealed. This was considered a sign of modesty, virtue, and respect for her husband. The hair was typically coiled nicely and then covered by a veil, wimple, or coif. These head coverings could be very simple, just a piece of white linen, or more elaborate, made from precious silk, exquisitely embroidered, even adorned with pearls or gold thread. They not only hid the hair, but also covered the chin and neck, leaving only the face and the high forehead exposed. This added to the mystery, elegance, and solemnity of the married woman. In some cases, the hair was even encased in decorative hair nets or cauls made of silk or precious metals before being covered by the headscarf. These hair nets were sometimes incredibly intricate, resembling golden or silver cages, embracing the hair bun and keeping it tidy beneath the covering. Even when concealed, the presence of golden hair was implicitly understood as a hidden beauty, a precious asset carefully guarded. Medieval laws and social regulations were very strict regarding attire and appearance, especially for women. A married woman exposing her hair could be deemed immodest, even suggestive. This reflected the belief that women's beauty needed to be controlled and concealed to maintain social order and morality. Beyond color, the thickness and length of hair were also important factors. Long, thick, and healthy hair was a sign of good health and fertility, highly valued in a society that emphasized childbearing. Women with thin or sparse hair often tried to make their hair appear thicker by using padding or false hairpieces made of wool or threads. Even men had their own rules about hair. While not as obsessed with golden hues as women, noblemen often wore their hair long, to shoulder length, carefully groomed and sometimes gently curled. Some even used hot curling irons to create flowing locks, symbolizing sophistication and refinement. Men's hair long needed to be kept clean and fragrant, often by anointing it with perfumed waters made from herbs. As night descends and the wind sings its ancient song through the stone cracks, you can feel the story of that hair, golden tresses, a symbol of beauty and status, yet also carrying binding rules, sacrifices, and silent efforts to achieve an ideal. It is a small piece of the larger, complex tapestry of medieval life.
Imagine strolling through a small, secluded garden nestled behind the stone walls of a castle. Here, the soft evening light bathes the unfolding velvet rose petals, casting a delicate pink hue upon each one. A gentle breeze whispers through, carrying a sweet, fresh scent, and you can feel a slight dampness in the air, like the dew about to settle. You see a young woman, perhaps a lady-in-waiting, meticulously plucking those very petals, her hands moving gracefully, as if weaving an invisible tapestry. In the world of the Middle Ages, a subtle flush of color upon the cheeks was not merely an aesthetic element. It was a delicate sign, a meaningful whisper of health, youthfulness, and fertility. It was not the vibrant, bold pink we often see today. Instead, it was a gentle, natural blush, as if the cheeks had just been kissed by a cool morning breeze, or had just experienced a quiet joy. An ethereal, unobtrusive blush, evoking the image of a pure maiden, brimming with life. While pale skin was the paramount standard for beauty and status, a touch of pink on the cheeks was considered the perfect complement. It balanced the pallor of the complexion, adding a hint of warmth and vitality, without detracting from the aristocratic demeanor. This pink had to appear as natural as possible, as if it emanated from within, rather than being a layer of applied makeup. Beauty was not something to be bought by excessive application. It was something that had to naturally reveal itself. So how was this subtle blush achieved in an era devoid of commercial blushes? Medieval women made ingenious use of nature's bounty and simple manual techniques. The primary ingredients were typically derived from plants or insects, carefully processed to yield the desired color. One of the most common ingredients was beetroot juice. Beetroots were boiled and their rich crimson juice extracted. A small amount of this juice was then diluted or applied directly to the cheeks. Beetroot juice provided a natural, sometimes slightly purplish, but very gentle pink hue. Its advantages were safety and accessibility. However, it was also prone to smudging and required frequent reapplication. You can visualize a noblewoman sitting before a mirror, dabbing a soft cloth dipped in beetroot juice onto her cheekbones, her eyes focused intently to ensure the natural effect. Crushed strawberries were another popular choice. Ripe red strawberries were mashed into a paste and then applied directly to the cheeks. Strawberries not only imparted a pink color, but also left a sweet, fresh scent. However, strawberries could be sticky and needed to be thoroughly washed off after use to prevent pore clogging. For deeper or more lasting shades of pink, cochineal was employed. Cochineal is a tiny insect that lives on cacti, and when crushed, it yields a powerful, vibrant red dye.
Although it might seem unusual, cochineal has been widely used throughout history for various dyeing purposes, from textiles to food and cosmetics. The dye from cochineal was mixed with bases like oils or beeswax to form a creamy rouge. This was an effective method for creating a more vivid and durable color, but it also required skill in preparation to avoid an overly intense look. However, the overly conspicuous use of rouge, or what we might call heavy makeup, was considered an act of vanity and verged on sin. The Catholic Church, with its profound influence on medieval society, frequently condemned excessive feminine display. Theologians and clerics argued that excessive cosmetic application was a form of deceit, a deceptive act that distorted the image God had created. It was seen as a sign of pride and lust, an attempt to entice men by visual trickery. Therefore, the line between subtle enhancement and overt vanity was exceedingly thin. A noble woman needed to appear healthy and appealing in a natural way, as if her beauty were innate, a divine gift, rather than the result of artificial intervention. A too vivid flush on the cheek could be immediately condemned, seen as a sign of moral corruption or an unmodest woman. Sermons from churches frequently reminded congregants of the dangers of vanity. They warned that excessive makeup not only marred natural beauty, but also defiled the soul. Some preachers went as far as to suggest that women who wore heavy makeup would face punishment in the afterlife. This created immense social pressure, forcing women to keep their beauty practices as discreet and natural as possible. Sometimes, to achieve a natural blush, women even resorted to simpler methods such as rubbing their cheeks with a rough cloth or gently pinching their cheeks to stimulate blood circulation and create a temporary flush. These were crude but effective techniques, demonstrating the inventiveness in seeking natural beauty without complex products. This blush was not just about color. It was also about the clarity and purity of the underlying skin. Rouge was only beautiful when it bloomed upon a porcelain-white, flawless complexion. It was like a final stroke, completing the canvas of the noble woman's beauty. It was a delicate balance between vibrancy and pristine purity. This no-makeup style not only reflected religious morality, but also social class. Only noble women had the time and resources to perform intricate beauty rituals that paradoxically had to appear utterly natural. Women of lower classes had no time for such luxuries. Their beauty was one of health and resilience forged by labor. In illuminated manuscripts, you can see depictions of noble women with subtly rosy cheeks. Talented artists used delicate washes of color to create this effect, ensuring that their beauty was portrayed with elegance and virtue. This illustrates that applying rouge was a skill requiring finesse, a subtle art to achieve perfection without ostentation. As night descends and you listen to the whisper of the wind, think of that blush. A small, seemingly harmless flush, yet it held complex social and moral rules, a whisper of beauty that demanded discretion and a touch of natural pretense. It is a small but significant piece in the grand tapestry of medieval beauty, a beauty shaped by both nature and human control. Let this story guide you into a deep sleep, where the mysteries of the past will slowly unfold and the delicate hues of history will caress your mind.
Take a deep breath. Not the scent of wildflowers or old books, but the scent of everyday medieval life. You are in a narrow alley of a bustling town, where wooden houses huddle together, their roofs thatched and their walls made of wattle and daub. The air is humid, carrying the smell of earth, the lingering scent of smoldering wood from hundreds of hearths, and the odor of things we'd rather not name. This is not a pleasant smell, but it is the scent of reality. And in this context, the art of body odor management became a delicate craft, a secret passed down through generations. In the Middle Ages, the concept of personal hygiene was vastly different from what we are accustomed to today. Bathing was not a frequent occurrence. For the peasant class, bathing was often a seasonal activity, perhaps a few times a year, primarily during warmer months when water was more abundant and heating large quantities of it was less costly. For the aristocracy, though they had more resources, bathing was still not a daily ritual. The reasons weren't necessarily a dislike for cleanliness, rather differing beliefs about health and the practical difficulties of heating and transporting large volumes of water. It was believed that excessive bathing could weaken the body, open the pores, and make the body more susceptible to diseases. The frequent outbreaks of plagues made people even more cautious about water, believing it could carry illness. So, instead of regular full-body baths, the focus was on dry cleaning and perfuming exposed areas, or simply masking the scent. Given this context, people developed a range of ingenious methods to cope with body odor. This was not the luxurious perfume emanating from an exquisitely crafted glass bottle. This was the art of concealment, of using powerful fragrances to overpower undesirable smells. One of the most popular and cherished items was the pomander. Imagine a small sphere, often crafted from precious metals like silver or gold, exquisitely engraved. This sphere could be opened, and inside it would be filled with potent herbs and aromatic spices. Common ingredients included cloves, cinnamon, nutmeg, ambergris, musk, civet, or dried flowers like roses and lavender. Pomanders were worn on the person, hung from belts or pinned to clothing, much like an amulet against unpleasant smells. As you moved, the pomander would emit a gentle fragrance, providing you with a personal safe zone from the prevailing unpleasant odors. You can imagine a lady walking through a market, raising her pomander to her nose whenever a waft of sewage or animal waste reached her. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a daily survival tool in a less hygienic world. The pomander symbolized sophistication and status, indicating that its owner had the means to navigate her surroundings in a cultured manner. Beyond pomanders, people also used small herb sachets filled with dried flowers and spices. These sachets were placed in wardrobes, in chests containing undergarments, or even sewn directly into the lining of clothing. Every time the wearer moved, the fragrance would release, helping the clothes retain a pleasant scent and mask body odor. You can picture a thick wool cloak, lined with small bags containing rose petals and rosemary, imparting a warm, comforting fragrance every time you donned it. Personal items were also scented.
Gloves were among the most favored items for perfuming. Made from soft leather, they would then be infused with essential oils from roses, orange blossoms, or musk. Every time you wore your gloves, a gentle fragrance would emanate from your hands, helping to conceal body odors or the smells of daily tasks. Even handkerchiefs were scented, and sometimes used to cover the nose when passing through particularly malodorous areas. Combs and hairbrushes were not exempt from this trend. They were often made from wood or bone, then perfumed or soaked in aromatic oils. Each time the hair was brushed, it was not only detangled, but also infused with a light fragrance. Hair, especially long hair, easily absorbed environmental smells. Thus, perfuming the hair was an important part of the grooming routine. Sometimes hair was even anointed with floral waters or diluted vinegars to make it smell more pleasant than sweat or cooking smoke. Medieval perfumes were not pure extracts as we know them today. They were often simple essential oils blended with alcohol or vegetable oils. Common flowers used for perfumery included roses, lavender, orange blossom, and jasmine. Herbs like rosemary, sage, and mint were also widely used for their strong scents and natural antibacterial properties. While full-body bathing was not common, cleaning visible body parts like the face, hands, and neck was performed more frequently. Water and simple soap, made from ash and animal fat, were used to wash these areas. This helped to remove dirt and some odor, but it was still not enough to replace comprehensive bathing. The perception of scent in the Middle Ages was also fascinating. Some believed that the body's natural odor was not inherently bad. A strong body odor was sometimes even considered a sign of health and vitality. However, the smell of illness or impurity was reviled. Aromatic substances were used not just to perfume, but to purify the air, helping to ward off diseases and evil spirits that were believed to be transmitted through foul smells. For instance, during the outbreaks of the Black Death, people often carried bunches of fragrant herbs or used pomanders, believing that the strong scent could ward off the miasma causing the illness. Scent was not just a part of beauty, but also a form of self-protection, an invisible shield against unseen yet terrifying forces. In the private chambers of the nobility, incense, scented candles, and dried flowers were often burned to create a more pleasant atmosphere. Embroidered tapestries or fragrant dried grasses were sometimes strewn on the floors to mask musty smells or unpleasant odors from daily activities. Homemade perfumes were spritzed onto curtains, tablecloths, and even beds to ensure the living spaces consistently smelled delightful. This created a stark contrast between the outside world, filled with the stench of streets, markets, and animal enclosures, and the inner world of the aristocracy, where scents were tightly controlled, creating a private and elegant space. Scent became a marker of social distinction, an invisible boundary between those who could afford to mask and those who had to live with the smells of reality. Close your eyes and feel that scent once more, not the modern perfume, but the aroma of cloves, rosemary, beeswax, scented leather mixed with a hint of smoke and earth. It is a unique olfactory symphony of the Middle Ages, a whisper of daily life where beauty was hidden in every breath, every controlled fragrance. As night descends and the wind sings its ancient song through the stone cracks, you can feel the story of those scents, the silent efforts to create comfort in a harsh environment, the secrets of personal hygiene, and the differing notions of cleanliness and fragrance. It is a fascinating and authentic facet of medieval life, a reminder that beauty is not just what we see, but also what we perceive with our other senses. Let this story guide you into a deep sleep, where the mysteries of the past will slowly unfold, and the fragrances of history will caress your mind. Listen to the footsteps on the hardened ground, the distant whinny of a horse, and the tranquil chime of a church bell marking the hour. You are in a medieval town square, bustling with merchants and townsfolk, yet their faces rarely break into broad, radiant smiles. These are often somber, sometimes weary countenances, and a smile, if offered, is typically a gentle, discreet compression of the lips. This is no mere coincidence. It reflects a harsh reality of oral health and prevailing beauty notions in an era where hygiene was very rudimentary. In medieval society, teeth primarily served a single purpose: to chew food. Oral health in general was quite poor. The diet of the populace, especially the lower classes, largely consisted of coarse bread, oat porridge, and other grains. While refined sugar was not prevalent as it is today, the starches in grains readily lodged between teeth, providing fertile ground for bacteria to thrive and cause decay. Furthermore, the lack of knowledge about oral hygiene and proper dental tools made dental problems exceedingly common. Imagine a dinner in a peasant's home: hard, dark bread, sometimes dipped in soup or stew to soften it, and raw vegetables. Teeth had to work constantly to grind down food, and after the meal there were no toothbrushes or toothpastes to clean them. For the aristocracy, though they might have enjoyed a slightly richer diet with meat and pastries sweetened with honey, hygiene issues persisted. Sweets made from honey and dried fruits also contributed to the risk of tooth decay. Toothache was a constant terror. If a tooth was decayed, there were no modern dentists to fill or treat it. One had to endure the pain or resort to folk remedies, which were often ineffective and sometimes dangerous. Dental surgery in the Middle Ages was a vague term, often performed by blacksmiths, barbers, or even monks. They typically had only one solution: extraction of the faulty tooth. No anesthesia, no antibiotics. Imagine the excruciating pain of a tooth being pulled with crude pliers. That alone was enough to make anyone hesitant to flash a radiant smile. Given such oral conditions, a set of perfectly white, even, unblemished teeth was extremely rare. Teeth were often yellowed, discolored, and sometimes had gaps due to early tooth loss. Caries, gum inflammation, and bad breath were common problems everyone faced. Therefore, in that context, a wide, toothy grin was actively discouraged. It was considered vulgar, ungracious, or even a sign of madness. Instead of a broad grin, a discreet, closed-lipped smile was preferred. It suggested contemplation, virtue, and modesty. A beautiful woman was one who knew how to temper her expressions, demonstrating grace and elegance through her eyes and posture, rather than an overly wide smile. A gentle smile, perhaps just a slight upturn of the corners of the lips, was enough to convey politeness without revealing any dental imperfections. Although oral hygiene was not as developed as it is today, medieval people still had their own methods to attempt to clean and protect their teeth. One of the most common methods was to use a rough cloth to wipe the teeth. A clean linen cloth, sometimes dipped in water or a little vinegar, would be used to rub the tooth surfaces after meals. This helped remove some plaque and food debris. To whiten teeth or reduce bad breath, people used powdered herbs. Herbs like mint, rosemary, sage, and even powdered cuttlebone were ground into fine powders. These powders were rubbed onto the teeth with a finger or a cloth. While not as effective as modern toothpaste, these powders could help clean the tooth surface and provide a slightly fresher breath. Some also used chewing sticks made from aromatic branches or those with cleansing properties. Branches from trees like cinnamon, oak, or birch were cut into small pieces, then chewed at one end to fray the fibers, creating a brush-like tip. This fibrous end was then used to scrub the teeth. It was a rudimentary but fairly effective method for dislodging trapped food and massaging the gums. However, all these methods offered only limited effectiveness. Badly aligned, protruding, or yellowed teeth remained a common reality. Thus, the art of not smiling broadly became part of social etiquette and beauty. In medieval portraits, you rarely see someone with a wide grin. Faces are often stern or bear a mysterious, contemplative smile. This wasn't because they were unhappy, but because it was how they conveyed solemnity, nobility, and self-awareness. In some cases, if a person had particularly bad teeth or had lost many, they might use temporary dental fillings made of beeswax or other materials to conceal the gaps. However, these were temporary and uncommon solutions, primarily reserved for the very wealthy and those with specific concerns about their appearance. The notion of a discreet smile related to spiritual and moral meanings. In many medieval cultures, modesty and emotional control were highly valued. Laughter, especially for women, could be seen as undignified, even vulgar. A virtuous woman was expected to maintain her composure, not display excessive emotion. The discreet smile became a symbol of purity, grace, and self-control. Even at feasts or celebrations, where there might be much merriment, members of the aristocracy still maintained a certain decorum. Their smiles remained restrained, unlike the hearty, carefree laughter of common folk. This was part of the social stratification, a way of maintaining an aristocratic image even in moments of joy. In medieval literature and poetry, when describing a woman's beauty, the focus was often on the eyes, hair, skin, and facial contours. The smile was rarely mentioned in detail, and if it was often described as a faint smile, a graceful smile, rather than a radiant one. This further reinforced the image of a discreet, serene beauty. Alchemists and medieval scholars also experimented with teeth-whitening methods using mixtures of herbs, salts, or even certain metals. However, these formulations were often ineffective and sometimes harmful to tooth enamel. The lack of understanding of dental science meant that these problems remained challenging for centuries. As you close your eyes and the wind sings its ancient song through the stone cracks, you can feel the story of that smile. A silent smile hiding the hardships of the era, the pain of dental ailments, and the strict social codes. but it was also a unique beauty in itself, full of meaning, symbolizing contemplation, virtue, and self-possession. You are in a room with a smoke-stained ceiling, where the flickering flames in the fireplace cast eerie shadows on the stone walls. The air is heavy with the scent of dampness, leather, and beeswax, creating a distinctive blend unique to aristocratic life. Garments hang suspended on wooden racks like untold stories, each fold, each seam imbued with meaning. Look at these clothes. They are not merely common fabric. They are a declaration, a tool for shaping beauty and status in medieval society. In the Middle Ages, the ideal female figure was slender, soft, and somewhat ethereal. It was a physique that evoked delicacy and nobility, in contrast to the robust, sturdy build of manual laborers. An ideal woman was not someone who could lift a sack of potatoes or carry a large bundle of firewood. Instead, she was someone who could gracefully glide through castle corridors, her hands delicate, her posture lithe. This beauty was not geared towards muscular health, but towards grace, elegance, almost otherworldly fragility, like a delicate flower needing protection. To achieve this ideal physique, clothing played a crucial role. Medieval dresses were intricately designed to reshape the natural figure, creating an illusion of slenderness and elongation. Specifically, the waistline on dresses was often tightly cinched just below the bust, right above the ribs, rather than at the woman's natural waist. This style created a lengthening effect, making the torso appear longer and more slender. The skirt below this high waistline would flare out, creating a gentle, tapered silhouette or a soft, flowing curve. While not yet the rigid and complex corsets we see in the Victorian era, the tightening of undergarments or bodices helped shape this form. Simple bodices, often made of linen or cotton, sometimes with laces or buttons, would be cinched to support the bust and flatten the midsection, creating a graceful and slender line from shoulder to hip. This naturally pushed the bust higher and flattened the stomach, creating a flowing and slender silhouette from the shoulders down to the hips. Dresses were often made from luxurious fabrics such as silk, velvet, brocade, or fine wool, depending on the wearer's social status and wealth. These fabrics had a soft drape, helping to create elegant folds and enhancing the overall elegance of the attire. Color also played a significant role. Rich hues like deep reds, blues, purples, or gold were often favored, not just for their beauty, but also because they signified wealth and status. The neckline was also given importance. Necklines were typically cut wide, boat-shaped, or square, to showcase the delicate collarbones and emphasize a long, graceful neck. This added to the woman's fragile and elegant appearance, drawing attention to her upper body and face. For men, the beauty standard also demanded a subtle balance. Noblemen were favored with a lean physique, broad shoulders, but not overly muscular. The ideal appearance was a man who could look ready for a jousting tournament, with a tall stature and a hint of underlying strength, yet also capable of sitting down and composing romantic poetry. This differed from the image of a peasant with bulging muscles from strenuous labor. The nobleman had to exude an air of effortless nobility. meaning he possessed latent strength but had no need to flaunt it. Men's clothing was also designed to create this ideal physique. Doublets with padded shoulders, cinched waists, and fitted tunics helped create an idealized form. Doublets were often padded at the shoulders to give a broader, more masculine appearance, but the body of the garment was tailored to be close-fitting, emphasizing a slender waist. This created an inverted V shape, highlighting the upper body and making the wearer appear taller and more commanding. Tight-fitting hose worn beneath the doublet also helped emphasize long, slender, but not overly bulky legs. Long cloaks, sometimes lined with precious furs, were also draped over the outer garments to add to an air of dignity and luxury. The colors and fabrics were similar to those used in women's attire, denoting wealth and status. Interestingly, medieval clothing was often designed to conceal the body's true form. For women, it flattened some natural curves and created an elongated silhouette. For men, it emphasized the shoulders and chest without revealing too much muscularity. This suggests that beauty was not about naturally showcasing the body, but about reshaping it to conform to a specific ideal. Clothing was more than just fashion. It was a language. Precious fabrics, vibrant colors, and intricate tailoring all spoke volumes about the wearer's social standing. A silk gown embroidered with gold thread could indicate that the woman belonged to a wealthy noble family. A velvet doublet in deep crimson with large puffed sleeves might be the mark of a rich knight or an important lord. These garments were not only beautiful, but also expensive, requiring significant labor to produce and maintain. Furthermore, sumptuary laws were quite common in the Middle Ages. These laws strictly regulated who could wear what type of fabric, what colors, and what styles, based on their social status and income. The purpose was to maintain social order and prevent lower classes from mimicking higher statuses through their attire. For example, only the nobility were permitted to wear silk, velvet, or rare furs. Vibrant colors like purple or scarlet were often reserved for royalty or high-ranking aristocrats. This further amplified the importance of clothing as a sign of beauty and status. The meticulousness in garment creation was remarkable. From hand-weaving fabrics, natural dyeing with plant and mineral pigments, to intricate hand embroidery, each garment was a work of art. Tailors, embroiderers, and jewelers all contributed to creating these magnificent outfits. You can visualize an embroiderer painstakingly stitching each thread onto a nobleman's cloak, creating complex geometric patterns or colorful heraldic symbols. The concept of garment cleanliness also differed. Frequent washing was a significant challenge due to the lack of clean water and modern detergents. Therefore, clothing was often made from thick fabrics that were less prone to staining or designed to be easily spot-cleaned. The scent of clothes was often managed by using herb sachets and pomanders, as mentioned in the previous chapter. Every small detail on a garment was carefully considered, from the drape of a skirt, the puffiness of a sleeve, to the way a belt was fastened. All contributed to creating a perfect image of the wearer, showcasing their sophistication, power, and beauty. These garments didn't just keep the body warm or cover nakedness. They were a second skin, a declaration of one's identity and place in society. Close your eyes and feel the stillness in that room. The scent of fabrics, old wood, and stories woven from thread and needle. Clothing was not just fabric, but a powerful tool to shape beauty, express class, and define status in medieval society. Every thread, every fold whispered of a carefully constructed and complex ideal of beauty. As night descends and the wind sings its ancient song through the stone cracks, you can feel the story of those garments. Beauties shaped from the outside in, the physical ideals and the social rules that governed every stitch. It is a fascinating and profound aspect of medieval life, a reminder that beauty is not just what we see, but also what it represents. Let this story guide you into a deep sleep, where the mysteries of the past will slowly unfold and the opulent garments of history will caress your mind.
Close your eyes and imagine standing in an ancient cathedral. The dim light from stained glass windows streams down, casting shimmering colored patterns on the cold stone floor. The air is hushed, broken only by the echo of your own breath and the warm scent of incense. You look up at the frescoes on the walls, where saintly faces gaze down, their eyes exuding serenity, sometimes a hint of melancholy, but always luminous and profound. In the Middle Ages, the eyes were not merely a part of the face, they were the windows to the soul, reflecting purity, piety, and inner beauty. In medieval beauty standards, the ideal eyes were large, bright, and clearly colored, often blue, gray, or green. These light eye colors were considered more beautiful, as they evoked purity and innocence, like a clear sky or an unblemished lake. Bright, limpid eyes also hinted at an untainted soul, undefiled by worldly desires. This was especially significant in a society dominated by religious doctrines, where physical beauty was often linked to spiritual beauty. To make the eyes appear larger and brighter, women employed several techniques, though not as complex as modern eye makeup methods. The goal was not to create a dramatic or seductive eye, but rather wide open, innocent eyes capable of reflecting another's soul. One of the common methods was the use of homemade eye drops. These were often made from natural ingredients such as rosewater, mistletoe juice, or even extracts from blueberries. It was believed that applying these solutions to the eyes could make them brighter, reduce fatigue, and clarify the color of the irises. Rosewater, with its soothing and cleansing properties, was used to reduce redness and brighten the whites of the eyes. You can imagine a young woman carefully dropping rosewater into her eyes each morning, wishing for eyes as clear as morning dew. Sometimes, to create the illusion of larger eyes, a special plant called belladonna, or deadly nightshade, was also used. The atropine found in belladonna, when dropped into the eyes, would dilate the pupils, making them appear larger and darker. This created a dreamy, captivating look, often referred to as doe eyes or enchanting eyes. However, belladonna is an extremely poisonous plant. Its use could lead to various dangerous side effects, such as blurred vision, light sensitivity, increased heart rate, and in severe cases, permanent blindness or even death. This is a clear example of the extent to which medieval women were willing to take risks for beauty, even when the price was their health and life.
Unlike today, eyeliner or mascara was not common. In fact, heavy eye makeup could be considered vulgar or immodest, especially for noble women. However, some women might use a tiny amount of soot or finely crushed charcoal to subtly darken the eyelashes, making the eyes appear a little more defined. But this had to be done very subtly, almost imperceptibly, so as not to detract from the natural and innocent look of the eyes. In terms of shape, almond-shaped eyes, slightly upturned at the outer corners, were considered ideal. They evoked elegance and refinement. Eyelids should not be overly puffy or have dark circles. Clarity and smoothness around the eyes were important. This was associated with a lifestyle that involved less strenuous outdoor labor and good nutrition, though not everyone had access to it. The eyes were also the primary means of conveying emotion. In an era where smiles were often restrained, the eyes became the main language of expression. A gentle gaze, a shy blink, or a distant look could speak volumes more than 1,000 words. This was especially true for women, who were expected to maintain their composure and not display excessive emotion. Luminous eyes also symbolized purity of thought and untainted by evil. In medieval art and literature, the eyes always played a central role in describing beauty. Heroines and saints were often depicted with large, sparkling, expressive eyes. This was not just a physical trait, but also a symbol of inner beauty, sanctity, and compassion. For example, in illuminated manuscripts, you will see depictions of the Virgin Mary and female saints with large, wide-open eyes, often gazing heavenward with deep reverence and piety. Sometimes, to enhance the eyes, attention was also paid to making the skin around them smooth and bright. Homemade masks from honey, egg whites, or vegetable oils were applied to the skin around the eyes to moisturize and reduce wrinkles. Although there were no specialized eye creams, these methods helped maintain a youthful appearance for this delicate area. For men, eyes were equally important. Sharp, intense eyes, conveying intelligence, courage, and leadership, were highly valued. However, eye makeup for men was not common. The beauty of men's eyes usually came from natural health and genuine expressiveness. Despite the dangers associated with using belladonna, the desire for large, alluring eyes led many to disregard the risks. This once again illustrates the power of beauty standards and the extent to which people were willing to sacrifice to achieve them. It was a choice between an idealized beauty and personal safety, and not a few chose the former. Remember, in the medieval world, beauty was not a perfect replication of nature. It was about refinement, reshaping, and sometimes transforming oneself to fit an ideal image accepted by society and religion. Large, luminous eyes were not just beautiful in themselves, but also because they represented deeper values of virtue, purity, and piety. As night descends, and you listen to the whisper of the wind, think of those eyes. Large, sparkling eyes, holding both the innocence and the pain of an era, but always luminous, like rare jewels. They were the windows not just to the soul, but to a world long past, where beauty was defined through a very different lens. Listen to the gentle hum of cicadas in the rose garden under the midday sun, and the soft rustle of silk curtains in a luxurious chamber as a light breeze stirs them. You are in a lady's dressing room, where natural light from a large window illuminates every small detail. On a polished wooden table, beside vials of rose water and powder, you see a small silver mirror, and in it reflected a face with a small black dot, carefully placed near the corner of the lip. That is not a natural mole. It is a deliberately created mark, a subtle visual language of beauty and status in the Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages, particularly during the High and Late Middle Ages, some aristocratic women began to experiment with creating artificial moles, or mouches, French for fly, on their faces. While this trend was not as widespread or as overtly emphasized as other standards, like pale skin or high foreheads, it carried a special significance in conveying sophistication, allure, and sometimes a subtle rebellion. These artificial moles were typically made from small pieces of black velvet or silk, cut into various shapes, such as circles, stars, hearts, or even crescent moons. They were affixed to the face using a little tree sap or natural adhesive. The placement of the mole was also very important and carried its own meaning. A mole near the corner of the lip might imply a passionate kiss. One at the corner of the eye might suggest a flirtatious nature, and a mole on the cheek could denote haughtiness or nobility. This trend became more pronounced towards the end of the Middle Ages and flourished in the Renaissance, particularly in the French and English courts. It was seen as a way to draw attention to a specific facial feature, or to conceal minor imperfections like a small scar or a blemish. This indicates that even in an era that generally discouraged ostentation, people found subtle ways to shape their beauty. However, the use of artificial moles also drew criticism from the church and moralists. Like heavy makeup, artificial moles were considered a form of deception, an artificiality, interfering with the image God had created. Theologians condemned them as marks of the devil or blemishes of vanity. Some even suggested that these moles were used to cover up scars from syphilis, a common disease at the time, further increasing the stigma. Despite this, the allure of sophistication and individuality led some noblewomen to experiment without hesitation. Court luminaries, always looking to set trends, would be among the first to adopt this style. It became a small but powerful symbol of chicness, a way to say you were confident enough to subtly break rules while maintaining elegance. Beyond cosmetic moles, other symbols on jewelry and clothing also played a crucial role in conveying messages about a medieval woman's beauty, status, and personality. Jewelry. Medieval jewelry was more than just an accessory. It was a symbol of power, wealth, and faith. Precious stones like emeralds, rubies, and sapphires were not only glittering and beautiful, but also believed to possess healing properties or bring good fortune. Gold and silver were intricately crafted into necklaces, rings, bracelets, and brooches. For instance, a golden brooch shaped like a dove might symbolize purity and peace, while a ring with a sapphire could be worn for protection against illness. Religious symbols, such as crosses, figures of saints, or engraved prayers, were also common on jewelry, demonstrating the wearer's piety. These items were often passed down through generations, carrying deep historical and spiritual value. A lady might wear a heavy gold chain, not just to display wealth, but also to show her connection to her family or noble lineage. Rings with family crests or specific gemstones were also a way to denote status and affiliation. Symbols on clothing. Clothing itself was a living canvas of symbolism. Family heraldry, intricate embroidery, or natural motifs were sewn onto cloaks, gowns, and headwear. Each motif could carry its own meaning. For example, the fleur-de-lis was a symbol of the French monarchy, often embroidered on the garments of those connected to the court. The eagle might symbolize power and courage. Other animal figures like lions, deer, or falcons also frequently appeared, each animal having a specific significance in the medieval symbolic system. The color of clothing was also a powerful symbolic language. Scarlet red could signify power or passionate love. Blue was often associated with loyalty and truth. Yellow could symbolize wealth or betrayal, depending on the shade and context. The choice of color was not merely personal preference, but a strategic decision to convey messages about oneself and one's family. Symbols on other accessories. Accessories such as small purses, hand fans, if present in the later medieval period, or other personal items were also often adorned with symbols. A purse embroidered with roses might be a gift from a lover, or denote a fondness for natural beauty. Even hairstyles could carry symbolic meaning. As discussed in previous chapters, long, flowing hair for unmarried women symbolized purity. Hair neatly coiled and covered by a veil was for married women, signifying modesty and virtue. Each hairstyle was a statement about marital status and social standing. Symbols in architecture and living environments. Symbols were not confined to the body or clothing, but also permeated the living environments of the nobility. These symbols, from carvings on castle walls to illuminated manuscripts, reinforced the values of beauty, morality, and class. For example, the depiction of saints with large, luminous eyes, as discussed in the previous chapter, was not just an artistic expression, but also a role model to emulate. Their purity became a yardstick for ideal beauty. Overall, medieval beauty was not merely a collection of physical attributes. It was a complex language of symbols, where every detail on the body, clothing, or accessory carried deep meaning. From a tiny artificial mole to a splendid brooch, everything contributed to telling the story of a woman, her status, virtue, and sometimes her hidden desires in a world full of unspoken rules. Understanding this symbolic language helps us delve deeper into the mindset and values of a bygone society. It shows that beauty was not just something to behold, but also something to decipher, to comprehend the hidden messages people wish to convey about themselves and their place in the world. Close your eyes and feel the stillness in that room. The scent of dried flowers, old fabrics, and stories woven from thread and needle, from small yet powerful symbols. Every mole, every ring, every embroidered motif whispered of a carefully constructed and complex ideal of beauty. As night descends and the wind sings its ancient song through the stone cracks, you can feel the story of those symbols. Beauties shaped not just by form, but by hidden meaning, aesthetic standards, and social rules that governed every minute detail. It is a fascinating and profound aspect of medieval life, a reminder that beauty is not just what we see, but also what it represents, a silent language of an era long past. Close your eyes and listen to the soft rustle of turning pages in the castle library, where candlelight flickers, casting dancing streaks of light on the cold stone walls. The air is hushed, broken only by the echo of your own breath and the warm scent of old leather and ancient parchment. You are gazing at a meticulously painted portrait, perhaps of a nun or a saint. Her face is unadorned by makeup, her hair concealed beneath a veil. Yet her eyes radiate an extraordinary beauty, not from cosmetics or silks, but from an intrinsic inner source. This is the beauty of purity, virtue, and piety, a paramount aspect of the medieval ideal of beauty. While previous chapters have explored the physical and external facets of medieval beauty, inner beauty, particularly purity and virtue, was considered the foundation, the highest defining element of a woman. A beautiful face lacking these qualities was deemed merely vain, empty, and fleeting. The Catholic Church, with its profound influence on every aspect of social life at the time, strongly shaped this perception. A woman's purity was manifested not only through her actions, but also through her thoughts, words, and demeanor. A virtuous woman was expected to be modest, humble, obedient, and unassuming. She was to shy away from worldly temptations, living a life exemplary according to God's teachings. Purity was a key factor, especially for unmarried girls, as it directly influenced their value and marriage prospects. A chaste, pure maiden was considered a precious gem, bringing honor to her family. So how was the beauty of purity expressed externally? It was revealed through simplicity in dress. Though still aristocratic, it was not overly flamboyant. Through gentle gestures, through a soft voice, and especially through her gaze. The clear, untainted eyes mentioned in the previous chapter were not just physically beautiful, but also symbolized a pure soul. Such eyes did not stare intently or dart about, but gazed straight ahead with sincerity and innocence. Noble women were typically trained from a young age in proper, dignified conduct, how to walk gracefully, how to speak softly, and how to display humility in all situations. They were encouraged to read scriptures, pray, and participate in charitable activities. All these practices not only strengthened their faith, but also shaped a public image of elegance and virtue. Virtue was a broader concept, encompassing various qualities. Piety was of utmost importance. A virtuous woman had to be a devout believer, dedicating time to prayer, contemplation, and participation in church rituals. She had to demonstrate reverence for God and adhere to the commandments. Charity and kindness were also significant qualities. A noble woman was expected to care for the poor, the sick, and those less fortunate than herself. She might engage in charitable works, assist the ailing, or offer alms to the church. These actions not only demonstrated benevolence, but also reinforced her social standing and family reputation. Patience and endurance were also considered noble virtues, especially in a society fraught with hardships and challenges. Women were expected to face adversity with resignation and without complaint, demonstrating strength of spirit and unwavering faith in God. In medieval art, female saints and the Virgin Mary were consistently depicted with serene, gentle faces, luminous eyes, and dignified poses. They often wore simple yet solemn attire, devoid of ostentatious details. Their beauty stemmed from inner peace, from an unwavering faith and deep compassion. These images were not merely sources of artistic inspiration, but also ideal models of beauty and virtue that ordinary women aspired to emulate. Theologians and clerics frequently preached about the connection between physical beauty and spiritual beauty. They argued that true beauty lay not in external frivolities, but in the purity of the soul. A pure soul would reflect outward, creating a natural, radiant, and more enduring beauty than any cosmetic. This also served as a means to control vanity and encourage a moral lifestyle. For women who wished to embody purity to the utmost, monastic life was an option. Here, all forms of vanity were renounced. Hair was shorn or cut short, concealed by a veil. Clothing was simple, unadorned. Yet in this context, the beauty of the nun was found in the serenity of her gaze, the peace on her face, and her profound piety. It was a transcendent beauty, rising above all worldly standards. This did not mean that noble women had to completely abandon everything related to physical beauty. On the contrary, subtle and discreet self-care was still acceptable, as long as it did not cross the line into vanity and did not detract from a natural appearance. Physical beauty was considered a gift from God, and caring for it in moderation was accepting that gift, but not excessively worshiping it. A woman of high standing in medieval society was judged not only by her wealth or splendid appearance, but also by her reputation of virtue and purity. A blemish on her reputation could ruin a woman's life, no matter how beautiful or wealthy she was. Therefore, maintaining an image of cleanliness and modesty was paramount. Stories of martyred female saints who sacrificed their worldly beauty for their faith were also widely recounted. These narratives reinforced the notion that spiritual beauty was eternal and far more noble than fleeting physical beauty. Close your eyes and feel the stillness in the air, the scent of old books, beeswax candles, and whispered prayers. Beauty was not something to be seen with the physical eye, but rather a light emanating from within, from a pure soul and a virtuous heart. As night descends and the wind sings its ancient song through the stone cracks, you can feel the story of that light, the inner radiance, the beauty of purity and virtue, values that profoundly shaped the perception of beauty in an era where religious faith dominated every aspect of life. It is a fascinating and profound aspect of medieval life, a reminder that beauty is not just what we see, but also what it represents, an eternal essence of the human soul.
Take a deep breath. Feel the biting cold of a winter morning when thick fog blankets everything, turning castle and village alike into blurry silhouettes. The wind howls through stone crevices, carrying the melancholy sighs of departed souls. You stand on a hill overlooking the valley, where life unfolds with brutal severity, and beauty is found not only in splendor, but also deeply embedded in suffering, in resilience, and in the faintest glimmer of hope. This chapter will take you into a deeper facet of medieval beauty, the beauty of existence, of faith, and of the acceptance of destiny in a tumultuous world. The Middle Ages was not a glamorous period, as fairy tales often depict. It was an era of plagues, wars, famine, and profound spiritual anxieties. The Black Death claimed millions of lives, leaving indelible scars on the European psyche. Relentless warfare between lords, kingdoms, or bloody crusades made life more precarious than ever. Famine was a constant threat, dependent on the weather, harvests, and human resilience. In such a harsh context, the concept of beauty could not be confined solely to pale skin, golden hair, or large eyes. Beauty was also the resilience in the face of illness, the courage in witnessing loved ones depart, the hope when all seemed to crumble. It was the beauty of accepting one's fate, of unwavering faith in God, and of the ability to find light even in the darkest shadows. Consider a peasant woman, her face etched with the lines of labor and sun, her hands calloused from fieldwork. She does not possess porcelain skin, nor shimmering golden hair, but her beauty lies in her enduring strength, in her boundless love for her family, and in her steadfast belief in forthcoming harvests, in God's protection. Her smile, though rare and unadorned, carries a genuine and profound beauty far beyond any cosmetic. It is the beauty of life, of survival, and of compassion. Beauty in suffering was often most vividly expressed in religious art. Statues of the crucified Christ, paintings of the Virgin Mary in agony at the foot of the cross, or depictions of martyred saints did not shy away from the ugliness of pain. On the contrary, they glorified it. Tears, wounds, despair, all became part of a sacred beauty, symbolizing sacrifice, compassion, and the grandeur of the soul. For medieval people, accepting suffering was not a sign of weakness, but a testament to piety. They believed that through endurance they would be purified and brought closer to God. Thus, scars on the body, pains in the soul, if accepted with faith, became marks of divine beauty, a light emanating from resignation and devotion. Death and beauty. Death was an inseparable part of medieval life. Plagues, wars, high infant mortality rates, all were grim realities. In medieval culture, death was not always concealed or avoided.
It was depicted in art such as the danse macabre, and funeral rites were of important importance. The beauty in death was not the beauty of the living body, but the beauty of a released soul, of eternal rest, and of the hope for a better life in the afterlife. A noble woman, despite having every means to cultivate her appearance, could not escape loss and illness. Her porcelain skin might turn pallid from sickness, her large eyes might be shadowed from lack of sleep, and her golden hair might become brittle from exhaustion. But in that context, her beauty was found in her composure when facing illness, in her whispered prayers for loved ones, and in her hope for resurrection. It was the beauty of an indomitable spirit. Hope and faith. In the darkness of medieval life, hope and faith were two guiding beacons. Faith in God, in salvation, and in eternal life gave meaning to all suffering. The belief that all trials were God's will and that a greater reward awaited in the afterlife helped medieval people find beauty in the most challenging circumstances. Stories of miracles, of saintly interventions, or of pilgrimages brought immense hope. A pilgrim, though perhaps gaunt, in tattered clothes, and with bleeding bare feet, would have eyes filled with unwavering determination and faith. That was a beauty that transcended all material appearances, a beauty of resolve and spirit. Beauty in suffering was not just passive endurance, it was the transformation of pain into strength, sacrifice into compassion, and despair into faith. It was the beauty of a mother who had lost a child, yet continued to care for her remaining children with boundless love. It was the beauty of a soldier returning from the battlefield with grievous wounds, yet carrying within him pride and courage. The artistic language of the Middle Ages, especially Romanesque and Gothic art, often focused on conveying deep emotion and spiritual meaning rather than anatomical accuracy or idealized physical beauty. Faces in sculptures and paintings often bore a contemplative, internalized, sometimes pained expressions, yet always radiated a sacred, transcendent beauty. For example, the statues of saints on great cathedrals often had tall and slender forms, not overly detailed in terms of musculature. Their faces bore a melancholic expression, but their eyes gazed heavenward, signifying a connection to a higher realm. This was not the beauty of worldly allure, but the beauty of humility, piety, and eternity. Medieval life was also steeped in rituals and traditions. From birth to death, all aspects were enveloped in religious meaning. In these rituals, people found beauty in communal unity, in the sharing of sorrow and joy, and in the inheritance of ancestral traditions. Beauty was not just individual, but collective, the cohesion of a community. As night descends and you listen to the whisper of the wind, think of these people, those who lived, loved, and endured in a harsh world. Their beauty lay not just in external physical attributes, but in the depth of their souls, in their ability to find light in the shadows, and in their unyielding hope for a better future. This story concludes our journey into the physical aspects of medieval beauty, but it opens a new door to understanding that true, profound beauty is often found in unexpected places, in the resilience of the spirit, in accepted suffering, and in unshakable faith. Let this story guide you into a deep sleep, where the mysteries of the past will slowly unfold, and the hidden beauties of history will caress your mind, showing you that light and shadow always walk hand in hand, and beauty can be found everywhere, even in the most tragic moments.
Take a deep breath and feel the pungent scent of dried herbs, sulfur, and strange metals in the air. You are in a damp stone chamber, where the light from a glowing furnace and flickering candles casts eerie shadows on shimmering glass retorts and thick, leather-bound books. The clinking of pestle and mortar, the bubbling of distillation flasks echo in the quiet space. This is the laboratory of an alchemist, a place where the boundaries between science, medicine, cosmetics, and even magic become blurred. In the Middle Ages, the concept of a scientist, as we know it today, did not exist. Instead, learned individuals who sought knowledge about the natural and supernatural world were often called alchemists, astrologers, or magicians. They not only researched ways to transmute base metals into gold, but also explored the secrets of plants, minerals, and even animal excretions to create medicines, poisons, and even miracles of beauty. While cosmetics and medicine are typically separated in modern society, in the medieval world they were intimately intertwined. A single herb might be used to cure a fever and also to whiten the skin. A mineral could be both a dye and an ingredient in a miracle cure for all ailments. Understanding of the human body was limited, and many illnesses were attributed to imbalances of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile, or the influence of the stars. Thus, methods of treatment and beautification were often experimental, sometimes dangerous, and frequently shrouded in mystery. Consider a typical alchemist. He might be an elderly monk hidden away in a monastery, a learned scholar in a university, or a wandering peddler selling remedies at market fairs. Their knowledge was accumulated from ancient manuscripts, from oral traditions, and from their own personal experiments, often at the cost of their health or even their lives. Cosmetic and medicinal ingredients from an alchemical perspective. Herbs. This was the alchemist's largest treasure trove. Each plant possessed its own qualities, believed to influence the body and mind. Roses. Not just for fragrant rose water for the skin, roses were also brewed as teas to treat diarrhea, soothe wounds, or even considered a symbol of love and healing. Distilled rosewater was widely used as a skin toner, eye drops, as mentioned in a previous chapter, and as a base for many creams. Sage. Considered an herb that brought longevity and wisdom. Dried sage leaf powder was used to clean teeth, reduce bad breath, and sometimes even used as a facial wash for its antiseptic properties. Rosemary. Used to make hair rinses to promote strong and shiny hair, and also an ingredient in poultices to alleviate muscle pain. Chamomile. Infusions from chamomile flowers were used to naturally lighten blonde hair, and also served as a sedative, helping to cure insomnia. Aloe vera. Though not as common as today, Aloe vera was known for its soothing and healing properties for burns and skin wounds. Minerals and metals. This was the alchemist's most characteristic domain. It was believed that metals possessed souls and could be perfected into gold or other precious substances. White lead was one of the most common skin-whitening ingredients. It created a smooth white base and provided good coverage. However, it was extremely toxic. Prolonged use of white lead could cause lead poisoning, leading to hair loss, paralysis, facial swelling, and even death. Alchemists might distill lead to create a fine powder, completely unaware of its long-term adverse effects. Mercury, sometimes used in ointments to treat skin conditions or even syphilis. Mercury was also highly poisonous, and its use often led to severe consequences. Sulfur, used to treat skin ailments like scabies and fungal infections. Its pungent odor was also believed to ward off evil spirits. Salt. More than just a condiment, salt was used as a cleaning agent, a wound antiseptic, and an ingredient in many beauty concoctions and remedies. Animal products and other organic substances. Animal fats. Pig fat, sheep fat, beef tallow were commonly used as bases for ointments, skin creams, and scented waxes. They helped soften the skin and keep other ingredients on the surface. Beeswax, used to give consistency to creams, lip balms, and to make scented candles. Beeswax also had protective properties for the skin. Eggs. Egg whites were used as face masks to tighten pores and firm the skin, while nutrient-rich egg yolks were used as moisturizing masks for hair and skin. Urine. Although it may sound repulsive, urine, especially children's urine, believed to be purer, was occasionally used to clean the skin or even whiten teeth due to its ammonia content. However, this was not common among the nobility. Ambergris and musk. These animal secretions were considered among the most precious perfumes, possessing strong and alluring scents. They were used sparingly, primarily in pomanders and perfumes for the extremely wealthy aristocracy, not just for their fragrance, but also to mask more unpleasant odors.
Secrets and magic. Most alchemists believed in a connection between substances and supernatural elements. An eye drop might be concocted under a full moon, or a skin cream might need to be stirred in a specific direction while chanting an incantation. Alchemical manuscripts were often filled with cryptic symbols, astrological charts, and formulas that could only be deciphered by the enlightened. The production of cosmetics and remedies was often a lengthy process requiring patience and secrecy. Alchemists typically worked alone or with a few trusted apprentices. They were not just scientists, but also magicians in the eyes of the public, individuals who possessed knowledge far beyond ordinary people. Some alchemists even specialized in creating love potions or aphrodisiacs. These potions often included stimulating herbs or other mysterious ingredients, concocted with the belief that they could attract love or ignite desire. While their scientific efficacy was unproven, belief in magic and the supernatural was very strong in the Middle Ages, ensuring that these products still had their own market. The contrast between the idealized beauty depicted and the actual methods used to achieve it was often stark. The use of white lead and belladonna is the clearest testament to the willingness of people to accept terrible risks to conform to societal beauty standards. This highlights the lack of understanding of modern medicine and the desperation of people in their quest for perfection. Close your eyes and feel the stillness in that laboratory, the scent of chemical concoctions, dried herbs, and secrets distilled over centuries. Beauty was not something created from simple recipes, but the result of relentless experimentation, mysteriously accumulated knowledge, and belief in the power of nature, and even the supernatural. As night descends, and the wind sings its ancient song through the stone cracks, you can feel the story of those alchemists, those who toiled in the shadows, brewing strange mixtures, hoping to bring beauty, health, and sometimes a touch of magic to the world. It is a deeply impressive and mysterious aspect of medieval life, a reminder that beauty is not just what we see, but also what we cannot explain, what lies beyond ordinary comprehension. Let this story guide you into a deep sleep, where the mysteries of the past will slowly unfold, and the alchemist's secrets will caress your mind, showing you that in every substance, no matter how simple, there is a hint of magic and a touch of mystery. Close your eyes and listen. No longer the clang of church bells or the distant thud of hooves, but the whisper of the wind through ancient ruins, carrying the memories of millennia. You stand on a high hill, looking down at layers of piled stone and earth, each layer a story, an era long past. Below you, the skeletal remains of a medieval castle stand silhouetted against the moonlight, a poignant reminder of the fleeting nature of all things, yet also a testament to an enduring beauty that transcends the boundaries of time. This chapter will bring you back to our journey, not to explore specific details of medieval beauty, but to reflect on what remains, the echoes through time, that beauty from the past leaves for the present and the future. We have journeyed together through a world where porcelain skin was the norm, where golden hair was celebrated, and large, luminous eyes were windows to the soul. We have explored intricate garments that shaped the physique, cleverly concealed scents, and even the dangerous secrets of the alchemist. We have touched upon the beauty of the silent smile, and of piety, of purity. But after all this, does anything of medieval beauty still resonate today, or are they merely relics forgotten by time? The answer lies in the concept of eternal beauty, not the beauty of a specific face, a temporary hairstyle, or a lavish gown, but the beauty of core values, of timeless notions. Although specific standards have changed dramatically over the centuries, there are profound elements of beauty, particularly inner beauty, that continue to be cherished. Appreciation of natural beauty within the era's limits. While medieval people made significant efforts to alter their appearance, pale skin, high foreheads, there was still a certain appreciation for natural, understated beauty. This was most clearly demonstrated by the Church's proscription against heavy makeup, deeming it deceptive. The goal was to enhance what was already present or to create a more idealized natural look rather than completely transforming oneself into another person. Today, the no-makeup trend, or the emphasis on natural beauty, remains prevalent, reflecting a desire to return to simplicity and authenticity. Though not for religious reasons, the idea of appreciating one's natural self is an echo from the past. The power of symbolism and visual language. We have seen how cosmetic molds, jewelry, and clothing motifs conveyed subtle messages about status, personality, and belief. Medieval society understood very well the power of symbols, where a small image could tell an entire story. In the modern world, visual language has become more powerful than ever before. Brands, fashion icons, and even emojis are all forms that inherit the symbolic power from the Middle Ages. We still use jewelry not only for adornment, but also to express our personality, beliefs, or social status. An engagement ring, a meaningful tattoo, or a logo on a shirt, all are symbols that tell our story. The beauty of health and vitality. Although there was no concept of fitness as we know it today, a person who was healthy, free from illness, and strong enough to work or fulfill social obligations was always considered beautiful. Pale skin was not merely for aesthetics, but because it signified a lack of outdoor labor, wealth, and, indirectly, health, being free from skin diseases. In the 21st century, health and vitality are two main pillars of beauty. Radiant skin, an energetic body, and a healthy lifestyle are considered ideal. This is an evolution from the initial medieval notion where beauty was associated with the absence of signs of heavy labor. The inner radiance, the beauty of virtue and soul. This is perhaps the eternal legacy of medieval beauty. Regardless of the passage of time and changing physical standards, the beauty of goodness, sincerity, compassion, and resilience of spirit remain highly valued. The beauty of purity, of piety, or of accepting destiny in suffering, all are aspects of an inner beauty that never fades. In a world obsessed with outward appearance, these values remain beacons. We still admire those with kind hearts, those who resiliently face adversity, and those who live with purpose and conviction. This is the strongest echo from the past, that true beauty lies in the depth of a person, not on the surface. Acceptance of differences within limitations. Despite strict standards, in a society where medicine was limited and life was fraught with perils, accepting physical imperfections like bad teeth, disease scars, was part of reality. This was not a celebration of diversity as it is today, but a necessary pragmatism. Today, the body positivity movement and the diversity in beauty are being emphasized, encouraging everyone to accept and love their bodies with all their imperfections. While having different origins, this idea of tolerance and acceptance can find a small echo from the harsh reality of the Middle Ages. The multifaceted nature of beauty. Medieval beauty was not simply a list of characteristics. It was a synthesis of physical, social, religious, and philosophical elements. It was a complex concept, constantly evolving and reflecting the profound values of the era. Today, we also recognize that beauty is not a singular template, but a broad spectrum of forms, from physical beauty to intellectual, spiritual, and artistic beauty. This is an indirect inheritance from the multi-dimensional view of beauty in the Middle Ages. As you close your eyes and the wind sings its ancient song through the ancient ruins, you can feel the story of that beauty. Not just the faded faces or garments, but the values, the notions of perfection, purity, and resilience that have transcended the flow of time. Medieval beauty, though alien to some modern standards, carries within it a precious lesson. Beauty is not only what we see with our eyes, but also what we perceive with our hearts and souls. It is the light from within, the strength of faith, and the ability to find solace even in the most tragic moments. This is a beauty that transcends all eras, an eternal beauty.
Take a deep breath and feel the shift in the air. The night wind has softened, giving way to the stillness of the pre-dawn moment. In the eastern sky, a faint ribbon of pink is slowly unveiling itself, chasing away the last shadows of the long night. You are no longer in the castle or the ancient cathedral, but standing amidst a field of golden wheat, where the night's dew still clings to each blade of grass, shimmering like thousands of tiny diamonds. Dawn is breaking, bringing with it warmth and a promise of new beginnings. This is the moment we conclude our journey exploring medieval beauty, but it is also a time to look forward to the eternal legacy that era left behind, like a gentle lullaby of history, guiding our souls into deep and peaceful slumber. We have traversed a long path together, from the dusty footpaths of peasants to the lavish corridors of kings and queens. We have touched upon aesthetic values that seemed alien at first, but upon closer inspection echo familiar sentiments even today. Medieval beauty was not merely a collection of superficial traits. It was a profound mirror reflecting a society, its beliefs, its fears, and the aspirations of its people in a bygone era. Recall the early chapters. We began with porcelain skin and high foreheads, symbols of nobility and intellect. This was not merely about skin color or skull shape, but an entire philosophy of social distinction, of detachment from manual labor and proximity to refinement. We can see its echo in modern society, where skin beauty remains a major concern, and elegance and sophistication are still highly valued in many aspects of life. Although the specific high forehead standard may no longer be literal, the reverence for intellect and thoughtful demeanor remains an indispensable part of comprehensive beauty.
Then we immersed ourselves in the world of golden hair and its luminous aura. Blonde hair was more than just a color. It was a symbol of purity, innocent beauty, and a connection to the angelic. Long, flowing, meticulously cared-for hair was a woman's pride, a sign of health and vitality. Even today, hair remains an important part of personal beauty, and golden hues are often associated with youthfulness and radiance. The concern for hair health, even with modern methods, is an echo from the meticulous care of the past. We also explored concealed scents, a lesser-known but fascinating aspect of medieval hygiene and beauty. In an era lacking clean water and soap, fragrance served not only to attract, but also to mask. Pomanders, herb sachets, and perfumes made from natural ingredients bear witness to human creativity and ingenuity. This reminds us that the notion of cleanliness and pleasant scent is a desire that transcends cultures and eras, even if the means change. The art of creating a personal fragrance remains a legacy from the Middle Ages, when each person sought a unique aroma for themselves. The silent smile told us a story of challenging dental health and strict social rules. Imperfect teeth reshaped how people expressed joy. A discreet, close-lipped smile was an expression of grace and modesty. Although modern dentistry has freed us from the fear of toothache and allows us to confidently flash radiant smiles, the subtlety in expression and the value of a genuine, understated smile still hold true. Sometimes restraint itself creates a deeper beauty. Large and luminous eyes were the windows to the soul, reflecting purity, piety, and inner beauty. We witnessed the daring use of belladonna to achieve captivating beauty, a testament to the disregard for danger in pursuit of aesthetic ideals. Though we no longer use such toxic substances today, the eyes remain the most important focal point on the face, conveying emotion and connecting people. The beauty of sincerity and depth in one's gaze is still a cherished value. Clothing and form demonstrated how people reshaped their bodies to conform to aesthetic ideals. High-waisted gowns, padded shoulders, and luxurious fabrics were not just fashion, but symbols of status and power. Even in an era where ideal body types are challenged, the idea that clothing can enhance natural beauty and conceal imperfections remains an indispensable part of fashion. The artistry in tailoring and material selection is still an inherited skill from medieval tailors. Cosmetic molds and symbolism revealed a complex visual language where every small detail carried profound meaning. Medieval society created a rich system of symbols to express identity, belief, and sophistication. In today's explosion of information and imagery, the power of symbols has not diminished. From brand logos to personal icons, we continue to create and decipher the hidden messages embedded in images. Finally, the inner radiance, the beauty of purity and virtue, and shadows and light, beauty and suffering and hope, brought us to the deepest core of medieval beauty. It is the realization that true beauty lies not in superficial layers, but in kindness, resilience, piety, the acceptance of destiny, and the ability to find hope in midst adversity. This is the most eternal lesson, that a person's true beauty is defined by the qualities of their soul, by how they face life, and by how they shine from within. The legacy of medieval beauty does not lie in our copying outdated hairstyles or garments. It lies in a deeper understanding of human nature, the complexity of social norms and timeless values. It teaches us that beauty is always a reflection of the era it was born in, but at the same time it carries universal elements of health, vitality, sophistication, and most importantly, the beauty of the soul. As the first rays of dawn flood the wheat field, feel the warmth on your skin. Let your mind drift through the images of a world gone by. Princesses with skin like snow, knights with keen eyes, alchemists with mysterious retorts, and peasants with resilient smiles. Each image is a note in the grand symphony of history, a gentle lullaby that time whispers into our ears. In this quiet moment, as the world awakens, let the stories of medieval beauty guide your mind. Think of the continuous change in standards, the constancy of core values, and the human capacity to find beauty in all circumstances, whether splendid or tragic. This is not just the end of a story. This is an invitation for you to continue contemplating, to continue discovering beauty in your own life, in those around you, and in the endless flow of history itself. Each of us is a part of that echo through time, carrying within us the legacy of what has passed and the potential for what is to come. The dawn has arrived. A new day begins, bringing with it rays of hope. Let the lullaby of history embrace you, guiding you into a deep and peaceful slumber, where the most beautiful dreams will unfold, and eternal beauty will caress your soul forever.
Tonight's story has gently concluded, fading like thin mist into stillness. All that needed to be whispered has now been said, as if you've just set down an old book for good. Now you can lower your screen, pull up your warm blanket, and let your mind drift into slumber. Or, if you wish, linger a little longer, allowing the final images to softly resonate within you. Thank you for your companionship and for listening. If these words brought you peace, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Tell me when you listened and what touched your soul. Wishing you a truly peaceful sleep and a very gentle night.